Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Indonesia-China Think Tank Forum entitled Indonesia and China After 75 Years of Bilateral Relations, The Way Forward. On behalf of the organizers, the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia in Beijing, and the Center of China and Globalization, or CCG, it is my great honor to guide you through today's program. This forum is the first forum held by the Indonesia Embassy in Beijing, which will also discuss politics and security aside from economy and people-to-people relations, whilst bringing together think tanks, professionals, diplomatic community, academics, and students from Indonesia and China. Without further ado, please allow me to invite our distinguished speakers to deliver their opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, to officially open today's forum, it is my privilege to invite His Excellency Mr. Jauhari Orangmangun, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to the People's Republic of China, to deliver the opening remarks. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
His Excellency Dr. Hassan Wirayuda, I think is following us through Zoom, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia from 2001 to 2009. My dear friend, His Excellency Mr. Imron Kotan, Indonesian Ambassador to the People's Republic of China from 2010 to 2013. His Excellency Dr. Rizal Sukma, Senior Fellow at the Center for Strategic and International Studies and Indonesian Ambassador to the United Kingdom, Ireland, and the International Maritime Organization, IMO, from 2016 to 2020. My dear friend, Honorable Mr. Henry Huiyao Wang, President of the Center for China and Globalization, CCG. My dear friend as well, Honorable Mrs. Mabel Miao Lu, Secretary General of CCG. Fellow ambassadors, distinguished speakers, and think tanks, colleagues from diplomatic corps, students, academia, ladies and gentlemen. A very good morning to everyone. It is a great pleasure to welcome all of you today, and allow me to first convey my sincere appreciation to the Center for China and Globalization, CCG, for co-hosting this timely and meaningful forum. CCG's long-standing commitment to advancing constructive dialogue makes today's event even more meaningful. The year 2025 is a historic milestone as the Republic of Indonesia and the People's Republic of China commemorate the 75th anniversary of bilateral relations. Over the past decades, our bilateral ties have evolved into one of the most consequential partnerships in the region. The establishment of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, CSP, in 2013, thank you to you, Pak Imron, Ambassador Imron Kotan, because he was here as the Indonesian ambassador at the time, who elevated our relations to CSP. Then in 2024, we upgraded our cooperation framework from 4 pillars to 5 pillars, reflects the maturity, depth, and strategic value of our relations. Our cooperation now encompasses political, economic, maritime, people-to-people, and security dimensions. Even after this CSP, Indonesia-China relations have continued to deepen. This year alone, we have witnessed a vibrant pace of high-level visits and exchanges, including President Prabowo Subianto's visit to Beijing in September, the visit of Chairman of the CPPCC only last week, His Excellency Mr. Wang Huning to Jakarta, the visit of Premier Li Qiang to Jakarta in May, the inaugural 2+2 Foreign and Defense Ministerial Dialogue in April, China's first ever 2+2 dialogue with any foreign partners. This engagement demonstrates the strong political commitment of both countries to enhance strategic trust and cooperation. Our economic relations continue to serve as a cornerstone of bilateral cooperation. China remains Indonesia's largest trading partner and leading investor. Last year, our trade with China, volume of trade, reached close to 150 billion US dollar. And in terms of, and up till September, it's already reached 135 billion US dollar. In terms of investment, China recorded US dollar 8.1 billion in 2024, while Hong Kong 8.2 billion US dollar. This year, we have also agreed to upgrade our financial cooperation from local currency settlement, LCS, to local currency transaction, LCT, which will further strengthen trade and investment resilience between our economies. People-to-people interactions remain one of the most dynamic pillars of our cooperation. China continues to be among the largest sources of foreign tourists to Indonesia. In 2024, approximately 1.2 million Chinese visitors traveled to Indonesia, and for January till October 2025, we have already welcomed close to 1.2 million tourists coming, Chinese travelers, as well as cooperation in education. Close to 15,000 Indonesians pursuing their higher education here in all over China as well. Indonesia has remained one of China's most trusted partners in ASEAN, while China continues to be Indonesia's largest trading partner. Our cooperation has contributed not only to economic growth, but also to regional peace, stability, and prosperity. However, as we look toward the future, both countries face a global landscape that is increasingly complex and uncertain. Multilateralism is under pressure from unilateral actions. Trade tensions have resurfaced. Regional hotspots continue to intensify. Internal political shifts and domestic pressures are becoming daily headlines. Natural resources and the environment face unprecedented strain. These realities challenges the very foundation of Indonesia's independent and active foreign policy and China's vision of win-win cooperation and a community with a shared future for mankind. Both principles will be put to the test as we navigate an era of profound change. Distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen, as a Chinese proverb wisely says, "Xing wen, xing yu nin," steady progress leads to far-reaching success. Today, as we celebrate 75th anniversary or 75 years of relations, this proverb captures the spirit of our shared journey perfectly. To mark this important milestone and to address the evolving geopolitical and economic realities, the Embassy of Indonesia in Beijing, together with the Center for China and Globalization, is honored to convene the forum entitled Indonesia and China After 75 Years of Bilateral Relations, The Way Forward. Our discussions today will unfold into two thematic panels. Panel discussion 1, Strategic Directions and the Way Forward of Indonesia-China Comprehensive Partnerships, Politics, Security, Maritime, Regional, and Multilateral Cooperation. Panel discussion 2, Deepening Economic, Education, Cultural, and People-to-People Cooperation. Of course, we look forward to your insights, ideas, and recommendations from scholars, ambassadors, practitioners, experts, and friends of both countries. Your insights will be invaluable in charting the future trajectory of Indonesia-China cooperation and ensuring that our partnership remains strategic, forward-looking, and mutually beneficial. Dear friends, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as we reflect on 75 years of collaboration, let us also embrace the opportunity of the next 75 years and beyond with confidence, optimism, and shared purpose. Together, we can go even further. Once again, terima kasih, thank you, 谢谢大家 for your presence.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your inspiring opening remarks. For the second opening remarks, we are pleased to welcome Mr. Henry Huiyao Wang, President of CCG, to also deliver the opening remarks. Mr. Henry, the floor is yours.
Your Excellency, Ambassador Dihojiri Otamakana, Your Excellency, Dr. Nur Hassan Wajatu, he will join us online. Your Excellency, ambassadors presented here today. Of course, also we have former ambassadors, also friends from CSIs, from Indonesia, think tank community. Of course, distinguished guests, friends from think tank, policymakers, business, and media. And ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So it's really a great pleasure to gather here with friends from Indonesia, but also from China, and both old and new, and also here in Beijing of this, at almost the year end of this morning. First, on behalf of Center for China and Globalization, we're honored to co-organize with Embassy of Indonesia. I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you and thank all of you for coming for this very meaningful and important gathering. This event is especially special. Is particularly special, actually. So, as our ambassador has just mentioned, this is an important forum that is reviewing the 75 years of China and Indonesia established relations, but also it's the first time that we have a think tank from both countries to discuss on various issues that we are very interested and also very meaningful to discuss and explore. So this event is really strongly supported by Embassy of Indonesia, and without the Embassy of Indonesia, I think we would not have such a successful event. So it's really important that the think tank community and also more and large business community and also all walks of life represented here for our two countries. Just now, the Indonesian ambassador outlined the importance of the Sino-Indonesia relations. Actually, the year of 2025 marks the historical 75th anniversary of the diplomatic relations between Indonesia and China. As we stand at the end of this year, we gather today not only to review our past achievements, but also to discuss, as our theme suggests, the way forward for our bilateral relations. Just 10 days ago, I returned from a trip to Jakarta and for attending a very important conference there, where it's a very large conference organized by the Indonesia Foreign Policy Community. And this immediately impression that has been for me that Indonesia is really a bustling and booming and also very prosperous country in ASEAN and also in Asia and also in the world. It's the fourth largest, the most populous country in the world. And if you go there, you will just feel the vibrant, the hustling, and also very, impressive economic development that I was really had a very deep impression. Indonesia is really a promising land, and with such a young population, very dynamic and very cross-culture as well. So as far as the Indonesia and China is concerned, I think that we have an enormous cooperation, as just Ambassador mentioned. For example, in trade, China has maintained Indonesia's largest trading partner for many consecutive years. In 2024, our bilateral trade volume has reached almost 150 billion, as Ambassador just outlined, and that represents a year-on-year increase of 6.1%. And also on the investment, China is Indonesia's second largest source of foreign investment. If you combine that with Hong Kong and the China Republic, the largest. So this is really, and Indonesia is China's second largest investment destination in ASEAN as well. So this shows very significant economic exchanges. And also we have seen those concrete numbers, tourism, student exchanges, and many more. And think tank exchanges we also witnessed today with the support of our Indonesian friends. So beyond the hard support of connections and trade, we attach equal importance to the soft connectivity. For example, of the think tank and the people-to-people exchanges. CCG has always been a dedicated bridge to acting as a connector for international exchange, and also we frequently organize high-level dialogues and exchanges, ambassador launchings, and we just concluded our 10th annual Global Think Tank Forum, and also this year we have conducted the 12th annual China and Globalization Forum. But more than that, we have frequently organized events with embassies, with international organizations, and we are very honored today to co-organize the event with our Indonesia Embassy. So as our agenda just indicated, as our ambassador has outlined, we're going to have a very fruitful discussions and very cross-ranging subjects that are going to be discussed. I think this is really a great start of this tradition of think tanks from China and also Indonesia think tank community with the Indonesian Embassy, that we're also inviting all the other excellencies, other distinguished guests to join us. It's really a great event to promote better understanding and also to deepen the ties between our two nations. So I think that I'm looking forward to the discussion that we have lined up today, and I'm sure they're going to be very fruitful, and we're going to have a very good summary, and we hope to have a good report out of this great event. So in today's dialogue, I think we provide practical policy recommendations for both governments and also contribute wisdom to the next 75 years of friendship between our two great nations. So I really want to say thank you again, and I want to wish this forum a complete success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President of CCG, for the encouraging wisdom of your remarks. We now move to our keynote speech, which will be delivered through a recorded message. We kindly ask the audience to look at the screen before us for the speech. It is my honor to invite His Excellency Nur Hassan Wirayuda, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia for the 2001 to 2009 period, to deliver his keynote speech. Your Excellency, the screen is yours.
His Excellency, Yang Hari Orang Mangun, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to the People's Republic of China, Honorable Dr. Henry Weiyao Wang, Founder and President of the Center for China and Globalization, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me first to commend the Embassy of Indonesia and the Center for China and Globalization their initiative in organizing these commemorations of the 75th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the People's Republic of China and the Republic of Indonesia. I thank you sincerely for inviting me to speak at this distinguished forum. As nation-states that emerged after World War II, China and Indonesia are relatively young and continuously developing. I often hear China modestly refer to itself as a developing country, although in many aspects China has already achieved the characteristics of a developed nation. As states, both our countries continue to uphold and defend principles of national sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity, principles foundational to international relations and enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations. Over the past 75 years, China and Indonesia has consistently upheld these principles and supported one another. In the case of Chinese Taipei, Indonesia maintains a principal positions recognizing Taiwan as an integral part of the People's Republic of China. Even in times of difficulty in our bilateral relations, Indonesia never wavered from these principles. Indonesia has never recognized the Republic of China government. In this context, it remains a source of national pride that Indonesia, through the leadership of its distinguished diplomats and statesmen, Adam Malik, played a central role when he presided over the 26th session of the United Nations General Assembly. At that session, on the 25th of October 1971, the United Nations General Assembly voted to expel the so-called Republic of China, enabling the People's Republic of China to assume its rightful place in the United Nations and as one of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. Indonesia's position reflected through the UNGA presidency of Adam Malik demonstrated its independent foreign policy, despite Indonesia's need at that time for Western economic assistance to recover from the devastations of the 1960s. As we celebrate the 75th anniversary of China-Indonesia diplomatic relations, as nation states, we must remind ourselves that contacts between our peoples and polities began more than 1,000 years ago. Historians recall the closest relationship between the Sriwijaya Maritime Kingdom, which exists from the 6th to 13th century, and the Tang and Song dynasties. Sriwijaya emerged as one of the leading transit and trading center for ships sailing between the Chinese coast, India, Persia, and the Arab world. Significantly, historical evidence is found in the journey of Chinese monk Yi Jing or Yi Jing. Yi Jing embarked on his pilgrimage in 671 and resided in Sriwijaya for 6 months to study Sanskrit and Buddhism before continuing to India, particularly Nalanda. On his return to China, Yi Jing again stayed in Sriwijaya, this time for around 6 years, from 687 to 693 to translate his Sanskrit works into Chinese. Srivijaya's strategic location between coastal China and South Asia made it a commercial as well as cultural hub. The marketplace is more than just a venue for exchange goods. It is a point of exchange for language, art, culture, technology, and religions. Sriwijaya also actively promoted soft power diplomacy, including the constructions of one of the first Buddhist monasteries or colleges associated with Nalanda University, the earliest known university in the world. Sriwijaya encouraged scholarly exchange among Buddhist figures from China, Beijing, India, Atisha, and Sriwijaya, Dharmakirti. For centuries, trade routes and cultural exchanges between our regions were largely peaceful until Western colonialism, beginning in the 17th century, disrupted these traditional modes of interactions for more than 100 years. In a way, the Asia-African Conference of 1955 in Bandung revitalized peaceful relations between our nations. Bandung provided an historic venue for our leaders, President Sukarno and Premier Zhou Enlai, and the first generation of newly independent Asian and African leaders to meet for the first time. They committed themselves to the struggles for decolonizations and to liberating their peoples from poverty and underdevelopment. The leaders of Asia and Africa stated, and I quote, that free from mistrust and fear, and with confidence and goodwill towards each other, nations should practice tolerance and live together in peace as good neighbors and develop friendly cooperations on the basis of the 10 principles. Principles later immortalized as the 10 Bandung Principles. Solidarity is the essence of the Bandung spirit, which ultimately served as the genesis of the non-aligned movement and a group of 77 developing countries and China. Bandung could rightly be seen as the ideological foundations of what we now refer to as the Global South. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as we mark the 75th anniversary of our diplomatic relations, we are in a far stronger and more confident positions than ever before. The foundations of our bilateral relationship has become increasingly solid. I humbly note that I had the privilege of contributing to the strengthening of this foundation when in 2005 our leaders signed the China-Indonesia strategic partnerships, the first such partnership ever concluded by Indonesia. In 2013, during President Xi Jinping's state visit to Indonesia, China and Indonesia agreed to elevate that partnership into a comprehensive strategic partnerships. This represented a highest level political commitment to expand and deepen cooperation in all areas: political dialogue, trade and investment, maritime affairs, infrastructure, connectivity, digital access, energy transitions, and climate change. Indonesia supports China's initiative such as the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, and continue to benefit from the Belt and Road Initiative. Under the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, our bilateral relations are flourishing, dynamic, and mutually beneficial. Multiple partnerships frameworks, including ASEAN-China, the ASEAN-China Free Trade Areas, and RCEP, may appear overlapping, but in reality they reinforce one another. The result is clear. China has become the largest trading partner of both Indonesia and ASEAN. In 2023, ASEAN-China trade reached almost $1 trillion. To be exact, 983.33 billion US dollar, making ASEAN's China's largest trading partner. Bilateral trade between Indonesia and China has continued to increase over the past 5 years. In 2021, total trade reached 124.43 billion US dollar, rising to 147.71 billion US dollar in 2024, with a relatively small surpluses or deficits for both sides. Investment has also increased. Chinese investment in Indonesia grew from 3.2 billion US dollar in year 2021 to 8.1 billion US dollar recently, while Indonesian investment in China has also expanded steadily from 13.34 million US dollar in year 2020 to 152.03 million US dollar in year 2023, with projected economic growth of around 5% for both China and Indonesia this year. Trade and investment can be expected to continue rising. Ladies and gentlemen, the existing global order has become increasingly weakened and ineffective. Indonesia and China should work hand in hand to strengthen the United Nations and a charter-based international order, especially the principle of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-interference in domestic affairs. However, history suggests that in the absence of major crises, reforms of the existing global order is extremely difficult, as demonstrated over the past 3 decades. A credible alternative to an ineffective world order is to develop a strong regional order as permitted under Article 52 of the United Nations Charter. In East Asia, we should accelerate efforts to build an East Asian community. We do not need to reinvent the wheel, a new mechanism. We can maximize existing ones such as the East Asia Summit, the ASEAN Regional Forum, and other ASEAN-led platforms. ASEAN itself must pursue internal efforts, internal reform as mandated by ASEAN Visions 2045. Continuous reform is essential for the survival and relevance of any institutions. China described this principle as, and I quote, reform without end. Only a healthy, strong, and cohesive ASEAN, working in close partnerships with China can serve as an anchor of stability in East Asia and the Indo-Pacific. In conclusions, history teaches us that progress in diplomacy is rarely linear. There are moments of tensions, but also breakthrough that restore confidence in cooperation. Our task ahead is to elevate the quality of our partnerships, to move from dialogue to understanding, from cooperation to trust, and from coexistence to a true community. As someone who witnessed and modestly contributed to the creations of the China-ASEAN strategic partnerships and its evolution into a comprehensive strategic partnerships, I remain convinced that our best path forward is one of openness and inclusivity. China and Indonesia can lead by examples, engaging in frank dialogue, respecting differences, and seeking common grounds. In doing so, our comprehensive strategic partnerships will not only endure, but thrive as a cornerstone of regional peace, stability, and prosperity. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your insightful message. Before we proceed to our next session, we would like to invite all speakers, His Excellency Ambassador Jauhari Orangmangun, Mr. Henry, His Excellency Ambassador Imran Kotan, His Excellency Ambassador Rizal Sukma, Mr. Ren Xiao, Ms. Xue Song, Professor Xu Liping, Mr. Gregorius, Mr. Lu Ruchuan, Mrs. Zun, Mrs. Mabel, Mr. Irwan, His Excellency Ambassador Kenji Kinasugi, His Excellency Ambassador Robert Lee, His Excellency Ambassador Muhammad Al-Dehaimi, His Excellency Ambassador Luan Manuve Mariner, Mr. Einar, please come to have a group photo to the stage. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the forum. We are pleased to begin panel discussion sessions. The first panel will be discussed about strategic directions and way forward of Indonesia-China Comprehensive Partnership, politics, security, maritime, regional, and multilateral cooperation. To guide this discussion, we are honored to have Mr. Irwansyah Mukhlis, Minister Counselor for Political Affairs of the Embassy of the Republic of Indonesia, as our moderator. Mr. Irwan, the floor is yours to begin the first panel. Joining Mr. Irwan, may we invite the 5 distinguished speakers for panel session 1. His Excellency Ambassador Imran Kotan, Mr. Ren Xiao, His Excellency Ambassador Rizal Sukma, Ms. Xue Song, and Mr. Einar Tangen to please come on to the stage. Thank you.
Saya sini. Pak Rizal setelah Pak Ren. Just gonna have fun. Thank you, moderator. Thank you, MC. Good morning, everybody. I hope you are all in good health, despite of the chilly weather. So basically, in this session, we are going to have fun, intellectual fun, that is. The panel will be panel discussion 1. The theme, as you can see on the screen, would be the strategic directions and way forward of Indonesia-China Comprehensive Partnership, politics, security, maritime, regional, and multilateral cooperation. It is certainly a great honor for me to moderate this session, and I would like to welcome you all to this panel, discussion one. And right before us, I have already here with me 5 prominent speakers and professionals in their respective fields. I hope today we can learn a lot about the dynamics of Indonesia and China relations and share perspective outlook on the Indonesia-China Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, especially in realizing the complexities ahead with regard to the existing geopolitics and geoeconomic challenges. Now, as a modality of this panel, I will firstly introduce the speaker and give them 10 minutes for presentation, one after the other. And then a question and answer session will then follow after all the 5 speakers have finished with their presentations, and will be limited to the remaining available time. Considering this, I humbly ask each speaker to be concise and punctual with the timing to leave more space for discussions in the question and answer sessions. Now for the first speakers, we have His Excellency Ambassador Imran Khotan. I would read a short CV of Ambassador Imran Khotan. As an alumni of Universitas Gadjah Mada and Fletcher University, Ambassador Khotan was a career diplomat and had served in many prestigious posts, namely former Indonesian ambassador to the People's Republic of China from 2010 and 2013, and to Australia from 2003 to 2005, and was the former Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Indonesia. Now, throughout his professional career outside the diplomatic world, he had also been assigned to many important positions in the field of intelligence and security, namely as a senior advisor to the State Intelligence Body and senior advisor to the Coordinating Minister for Political and Security Affairs. Ambassador Imran Khotan writes extensively, including in Kompas Daily, the Jakarta Post, and the Straits Times. He is, nevertheless, as Ambassador Johari Ratmangun mentioned earlier, most well known for his important role as the chief architect of the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership between Indonesia and China signed in 2013, which was achieved under his tenure as the Indonesian ambassador to the PRC. Without further ado, Excellency, please share with us your views on the strategic aspect of the future Indonesia-China bilateral relations. And Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I would start by saying you just ignore what he has said. I'm an ordinary ordinary individual coming from Jakarta. I'm very honored to be invited to this very distinguished forum. I would like to thank Ambassador Johari Ratmangun for inviting me, as well as Chairman of the China Center of China and Globalization. I think I have heard a lot of you, so I hope you would continue contributing to the enhancement of our bilateral relations. And I have to acknowledge the presence of so many distinguished ambassadors. And of course, so many scholars, as well as participants of this important gathering. Let me start by saying that Indonesia as a nation, we used to refer to Indonesia as Nusantara back, few millennia ago. As a nation, as a sort of a collective Indonesia, we have nurtured our relationship with China so many millennia. This is not a new relationship, but of course, Indonesia and China have started their diplomatic relations back in 1950, shortly after Indonesia gained its independence from the Dutch colonial rule. So our relationships basically dated back to ancient times, but diplomatically we established our relationship only in 1950. The establishment of these diplomatic relations certainly, as you know, was heavily shrouded by what we call as Cold War era, during which a competition between two centers, the West and East, was very fierce. That certainly led to our decision to freeze our relationship with China for whatever reasons. But as mentioned by our former Foreign Minister Hassan Wirayuda just a few minutes ago, we continue to honor our principle on one China policy. This is not a political gimmick. This is a sign that Indonesia attaches very important relationship with China. So again, as I mentioned, it was referred back by our former foreign minister. And as part of the system, I know for certain this is not a mere political gimmick. We adhere to one China policy as strongly as possible, affirming the fact the sovereignty of China over Taiwan. So there is no question about it. So since then, when we decided to freeze our diplomatic relations with China, our relations had put into a very stringent test. But although, as I mentioned, from a historical perspective, over 2 decades freeze of our relations, diplomatic relations that is, in the perspective of history, it's only a blink of an eye. So probably you should not hype about it, too much, because from historical perspective, it's basically a blink of an eye. And then it is to be noted that, as I mentioned, that during that difficult times, we continue to honor our relationship with China. Indonesia's firmness in upholding this policy should not be seen, as I mentioned, as a diplomatic gesture in our ties, but as a measuring tool to gauge the importance of Indonesia attaches to its ties with China. And then immediately after the Cold War era faded away, the two leaders from the two countries earnestly worked together to develop our diplomatic relations to reach the level that we are now satisfyingly enjoying, thanks partly or wholly by the role of Ambassador Johari Oratmangun. I think we need to applaud him for what he has done so far. So this again reminds us of the speech once delivered by President Xi Jinping, in which he pledged to work together with all leaders, near and afar, toward a better future for Asia and the world, underlining China's commitment to work multilaterally, a spirit that has recently been eroded. The journey to achieve such outstanding diplomatic relations is full of dynamics. There are a number of milestones that we need to take into account. How determined Indonesia, both countries, to take our ties to new heights. I would like to underline a couple of them. Number one is the opening of Indonesia's Consulate General in Shanghai, and we are currently discussing to open another one in Chengdu. That is also a sign that our development in terms of diplomatic relations is increasingly developed from time to time. And then the second one, the elevation of Indonesia-China relationship from strategic to a strategic and comprehensive partnership, co-signed by President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono and the President Xi Jinping back in 2013. The former Minister of Foreign Affairs, Hasan Wirajuda, also alluded to this fact that I'm very proud to be part of this because I was the one who proposed this to the Chinese side in order to elevate, to basically put aside what we experienced back when we decided to freeze our diplomatic relations. And then also Ambassador Johari Oratmangun mentioned this during his keynote speech. And then also the other one is the significant increase of our bilateral trade volumes. And then the other one is the seemingly incessant visits by leaders as well as peoples from the two countries. In fact, actually, Ambassador Johari Oratmangun just returned back from Jakarta, accompanying Huaning, right? One of the important leaders of China to come and visit Indonesia. And then, of course, the latest being the flow of investment from China to Indonesia. In fact, China now is one of the largest trading and investment partners of Indonesia. Then we are very thankful about it. And this is also made possible by the fact that Indonesia houses the largest, the biggest Chinese community outside of China. Probably some of you are not aware of this fact. This is also a modality for us to proceed to elevate our relationship with China. They are all fully integrated into our society, progressing forward to become an all-inclusive and modern nation, currently under the leadership of President Prabowo Subianto, whom I personally know. Indeed, our bilateral relations are now just like spring. Flowers are blooming. We, however, need to be vigilant. A small mishap can turn our relationship into something else. So we have to be careful in navigating it in order to be able to deepen, widen, strengthen our bilateral ties. Challenges are there, sort of from the recalcitrant conflicts to a series of new ones, notably the trade war initiated by President Donald Trump. It is more compounded by the recent depressing development in the Middle East, where Israel relentlessly continues to pursue its reckless territorial ambition and to deny Palestine's right to self-determination. These challenges also put the world to the extreme test. Even more worrisome, and I would like to underline this point because we cannot be isolated by what is happening in the other part of the world. Even more worrisome, there are indications that the two-state solution endorsed by the UN Security Council and the UN General Assembly on the conflict will be sidelined to be replaced by a market. I would like to underline this point. By a market-oriented solution, what they term as Middle East Riviera. This is an affront to the principles against colonization. And if this concept is implemented, the occupied Palestine territories will be thrown back to the pre-Balfour Declaration 1917 all over again. So basically, Palestine territories will be a protectorate. Instead of the United Kingdom, the protectorate will be governed by the US. A viceroy, and President Donald Trump has mentioned that he is going to be the one to govern Gaza territories. So again, this reminds us the Iraqi case. It was also governed by a viceroy until it collapsed and became a failed state, a place where terrorism once sprang into action. Similarly, the war between Russia and Ukraine continues unabated with no apparent solution. These two major conflicts have taxed not only the world security but also economy. The global supply chain has been ever since disrupted, driving the price of commodities through the roof. Every country suffers, including Indonesia as well as China. Coupled with the regional tensions, especially the South China Sea, these challenges may well compromise our concerted effort to maintain this commonly shared region as a region of peace and progress. Taking into account the current challenges, Indonesia and China, as genuine partners, need to redouble their efforts to avoid this region to becoming an arena where gladiators fight each other, as President Xi Jinping once rightly illustrated. Self-restraint is therefore a must, while working earnestly to conclude the long-awaited Code of Conduct in the South China Sea. Why? Because we need stability, security far more now as the world faces so many challenges, especially the pressure coming from the outside of our region. Accordingly, we need to be more open-minded. This is my point. Accordingly, we need to be more open-minded and creative on how best Indonesia and China can move together to bring these diplomatic ties to much higher plane, contributing therefore to the strengthening of the regional security architecture, because Indonesia and China are the two biggest nations in our region. Of course, the other one is India. So we need to basically work together with key players in our region, such as India, Japan, South Korea, or even Australia, not because I was Indonesian ambassador to Australia. As a contributing factor to regional security architecture, the relations between Indonesia and China need to be strengthened, not only reviewed, but strengthened from time to time. And then I hope that Ambassador Ratmangun Jauhari will convey this message to Jakarta, although I'm in Jakarta, but through his good hands, probably the message will be heard, more. To start with, I tend to argue that uplifting the scale of Indonesia's participation in China's supply chain is essential. It's not only important, it's essential. Essential. Currently, Indonesia enters the supply chain from the lower ladder by supplying China with semi-polished, if not outright raw commodities, notably coal, iron ore, nickel, and palm oil. According to Indonesia's Central Bureau of Statistics, the country's non-oil and non-gas exports to China in 2024 topped at US $24.2. There is no indication whatsoever that the current fiscal year will be of any difference. There will be no difference at all. As I was preparing to depart for Beijing to attend this important meeting, the entire island of Sumatra was extremely flooded. The human toll is close to 1,000, while hundreds are still unaccounted for. Public infrastructures and houses are damaged beyond repair. It will cost Indonesia millions of US dollars to mitigate this natural disaster and bring the situation to normalcy. A very difficult task because Indonesia is currently enduring a financial strain. As a way forward, I would like to conclude my remark by underlining this point. As a way forward, it is also high time for the two countries to establish a roadmap to allow Indonesia to enter China's supply chain at a higher rank. The first strategic step, I would argue, is to jointly develop a center of excellence or a Silicon Valley in Indonesia to help produce environmentally friendly products needed by the two big markets, Indonesia and China, combined together is a huge market, but probably beyond our markets. So there is an urgent need for Indonesia to gradually leave behind the environmentally unfriendly extractive industry. The role of China in this regard is critical, as China is now a leading nation in innovation. So the chairman probably, the chairman of China Center for Globalization may take note of this. China is now the center of development in the entire world. So in line with President Xi Jinping's pledge to realize China's dream, in which he mentioned that the products produced by China are no longer made in China. You know, if you go to supermarkets and all that, made in China. But President Xi Jinping pledged, he wanted China not only to produce products made in China, but made by China. That signifies the independence of China as a producing country. So this is very important. I heard it from the horse's mouth directly when he mentioned this. He wanted all the products produced by China. It's not only made in China, but not only made in China, but made by China. So again, since we are talking about the relationship between two countries, I would close my statement by saying China and Indonesia may be oceans apart, but we share the same dream. We share the same dream, that is to become a stable, prosperous nation, justly governed by a government that puts the interests of each people above anything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency, for that inspiring and eye-opening presentations. Let me take note of several steps that you just mentioned, which is to elevate supply chain rank, and then to collaborative endeavor by jointly develop the Center of Excellence. Also, you mentioned about transition from extractive industry, as well as made in China to made by China. I think that's a very important. And the last one is, of course, I think what Imran's trying to say is, there's a saying, you may sleep in the same bed but different dreams, but now we want the same dreams. I think that's basically the summary. Thank you very much, Pa, for your excellent presentation. Now I will invite our second speaker, which is Mr. Ren Xiao, to represent China's view on elevating the bilateral relation between the two countries. Now, Dr. Ren Xiao is a professor of international politics in both Beijing Foreign Studies University, BFSU, and Fudan University. He's also a senior fellow at CCG. Dr. Ren has held research or visiting positions at several universities in the US. His works include journal articles, books, multiple editorial boards, including Globalization, Journal of Global Policy and Governance. And Dr. Ren worked at Chinese Embassy in Tokyo from 2010 to 2012. In this discussion, I hope you can share with us your views on the convergence, constraints, and new pathways between Indonesia and China relation. Dr. Ren Xiao, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here and to meet my long-lost friend, Ambassador Rizzo Sukma, and of course, many old and new friends. I guess the organizers want me to talk about the topic from a Chinese perspective. And I'll start from the basics. Indonesia is a part of Southeast Asia. Southeast Asia is a part of China's neighborhood, since we stand here in this country. As you all know, China has a very complex neighboring environment. We share borders with as many as 14 countries and several other neighboring countries across the seas, Indonesia included. And the legacy left over by history is not a very positive one. For example, there existed a series of territorial disputes between China and its neighboring countries. Over the years, we solved territorial disputes with 12 countries out of the 14. And this is not a small achievement. We solved our territorial disputes one by one with 12 neighboring countries. What does that mean? That demonstrates that the Asians have the wisdom and the capability to solve the problems between and among themselves. With just 2 territorial disputes remain, which the one with India and the other with Bhutan, and the two are related. Those two are the most difficult ones. Okay, so 12 out of 14 territorial disputes have been solved, which is good, which is great for the countries. Therefore, it is logical that China attaches a lot of importance to building a peaceful and stable neighborhood. One will not overestimate the importance of building such a peaceful and stable neighborhood. It's clear that peace allows development. Without peace, development is not possible. So when Cambodia and Thailand had a conflict in their border areas, Malaysia, as a chair state of ASEAN, of course played a role. And China, as their neighboring country, also played not an unimportant role, because we hope our neighboring countries can coexist peacefully and everyone prospers. China's reform and opening to the outside world has undergone a process which has been a process of more than 40 years. And our experience of reform and opening, we have drawn two important lessons from our experience of reform and opening. One is that we must be open. We must be open to the outside world. We can only build a constructive relationship with the outside world when we are open. Second, development is the first priority. Development is the key to many other issues. So just recently, our government released an important document, which is the 15th five-year plan proposal, which is our ruling party's proposal for the 15th five-year plan. And this is very important to understand what China is going to do in the next 5 years. It is a very long document, and I would suggest everyone to read it carefully, because it is very important to understand China and what China wants to achieve in the next 5 years. So when you understand China's development goals and what China wants, you understand Chinese foreign policy. Once one understands Chinese foreign policy, you understand China's policy towards Southeast Asia. Once you understand China's policy towards Southeast Asia, you understand what the Chinese policy toward Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ren, for that comprehensive and relevant presentations. I noted that you have highlighted China's perspective as wisdom to solve several disputes, territorial disputes, and you highlight how peace and development is a key for resolving issues. Now, without further ado, I would like also to invite our third speaker, Ambassador Dr. Rizal Sukma. Dr. Rizal Sukma is a senior fellow researcher of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a profound writer, and was a former Indonesian ambassador to the UK, Ireland, and the International Maritime Organization from 2016 to 2020. Ambassador Rizal Sukma had also participated in a number of national committees in Indonesia, which deals mainly with strategic defense, national defense, the armed forces, as he specializes in issues such as Southeast Asia security, ASEAN, Indonesia's defense and foreign policy, military reform, and domestic political changes. As a Doctor of International Relations from London School of Economic and Political Science, Mr. Sukma has published 3 books and had been named as one of the 100 global thinkers in 2009 by Foreign Policy magazines. Excellency, I hope you can brief us on enhancing Indonesia-China coordination in maritime, regional, and multilateral cooperation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank Ambassador Johari and also my friends Henry Wang. It's good to see you again after, I think, 2 years. And I'm really happy to share this panel, with my old friends, Ren Xiao Lao Shi and also Su Song Lao Shi. So it's really good to see you both. And I really value this opportunity to share my thought, on how Indonesia and China relation can move forward. As someone who wrote dissertations at the London School of Economics on Indonesia-China relation, I can speak on this topic for 5 hours at least. But I will try to stick to the 10 minutes, even less. I would begin by reminding all of us of the speech that was delivered by President Sukarno on the 30th September in 1960. So he spoke, in a speech titled "To Build the World Anew," and then he spoke about, how irrelevant the United Nations at that time. And I think the Minister Hassan Wirayuda referred to, that episode, shortly, briefly, in his opening speech. Then President Sukarno talked about that this UN need to be reformed in the sense that because it did not, reflect the reality of the day. And that reality of the day was, the absence of People's Republic of China as a member of the United Nations at that time. And then he called, for an immediate inclusion of the People's Republic of China, into the UN system at the time. And then he also spoke about, how the world is not fair because, there was still this imperialism, colonialism, and so on, and not all colonized countries actually already achieved independence. So that calls, for reform of the UN, I think, is relevant again today. So you look at the international order, that international order is falling apart, when countries no longer respect international laws, and then all these, some of the key institutions of the UN system began, to become dysfunctional, and then some, major powers no longer see the importance of the UN. But, I do think that the UN is still important. What we need to do is actually, to reform. And that's, in my view, should be one of the first areas where at the global level, at the international level, where Indonesia and China partnership should actually have more conversation, have more coordination on what sort of global order that, we want to see, so that, we can actually work together in order to shape the emerging global order, which I think everybody is thinking about at the moment, after the US kind of like withdrawal, from the commitment, to have a better world order. So this is the area that where I think new ideas, new thinking, so that we can have an international order that benefit all. An international order where we don't need an hegemon, to lead the process of cooperation, an order which is inclusive and an order that actually values equality among the nation. So these kind of the order that we all actually longing for. So I don't think that, the world today and also for the next many years to come needs an hegemon, a single dominant, a leader that will, dictate and shape, how the world, should be run. So within that context, my personal appeal to China, do not get tempted to any idea about the G2 arrangement. So we don't need also the concept of powers arrangement, and then carve the world, into two, and then half for China and half for the US, for the great powers. So I think, we need to work together between big countries, middle countries, especially, countries in the middle, like Indonesia, in this rivalry, and then the smaller countries then try to craft an international order that actually benefit, all. So that's the first, I think, area of cooperation, for the next probably 25 years. The second one, I do believe that, Indonesia and China should also, I would like to echo Ambassador Kotan when he talked about regional architecture. So I think Indonesia and China should also coordinate very closely and then, work very closely also, to really strengthen the regional arrangement that we have at the moment. So within that context, it is very important to recognize and support ASEAN centrality, ASEAN autonomy, and also ASEAN agency. ASEAN countries do have an agency. And then, I think that need to be part of this effort in order to create a regional architecture in the regions. So I would say that, regional architecture should also be inclusive. And then I cannot think except that, we need to really build these ASEAN-centered platforms that we already have. And then the new one, which I think leaders just decided, to strengthen in KL 2 months ago, is actually the RCEP. RCEP, in terms of the membership, I think it's a very interesting. And then even though now it's still an economic platform, but I do like to propose that, we need also to bring in the security and strategic dimension into the RCEP platform. So we can actually look at all those issues where the economic and the security linkages is actually inseparable. So I'm not really comfortable with those who say that, for the economy one, you can work with China, for security that you can work with the US. So this economic and security is actually linked. Then RCEP is a good platform to actually work where we also address the security dimension of the economic cooperation, climate change, the security of the supply chains, the critical mineral issue, and then also we need to resist the secondary sanction, I think a tendency, by some countries which actually put a lot of, a constraint on the economic development. That's the second area where I think Indonesia and China, can work. The third one, I think we both really already pledged that, we will transform the sea from the ocean of competition into the ocean of cooperation. So that's where I think a lot of work, need to be done. So we need to think about, how to set up a conflict prevention and conflict management mechanism that can actually ensure a good order at sea. So this is, I think, the challenge that we all face. And Ambassador Kotan already mentioned about the importance of the COC, and so on. That's part of it. So I think, we can also work on or less sensitive issues, such as, how Indonesia and China or China and ASEAN can work to address the pollution issue at seas, and how to address, the crowded sea lanes, from China, to the Malacca Strait, and so on. And also whether, we should work together in order to regulate and also to ensure that, we do follow the principles of sustaining, the oceans, and then also even though, we need to utilize all the resources, but at the same time, we also, able to sustain the use of ocean resources. So issues such as the depletion of the fishing stock, and so on can be one area that, we try to look at. I have many actually suggestions, but I will say this, in a conclusion. The plan of action, between Indonesia and China will, I think, expire in 2026. I would like to suggest that, I think both countries should put together a group of EPG in order to think about where we have, what we have achieved, where we are now, and then where we want to go in the next, I think, 30 years, 25 years. So that when we celebrate the 100 years, this Indonesia-China diplomatic relation, and then, we have an idea, where Indonesia-China relationship, should be, then what sort of contribution that we can give, not only to the region, but also to the global community as a whole. So I think I just stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Excellency, for that most in-depth and insightful presentation. If I can give a little summary, I noted that you highlighted 4 areas of cooperation. The first is regarding Indonesia and China could cooperate in terms of world order and governance. And the second would be concerning the regional security architecture. And the third would be the transforming the sea into the sea of cooperation. And also you mentioned something along the line of with the need for eminent person and group for the plan of action for China and Indonesia bilateral relations for the way ahead. Thank you very much, Excellency. Now we turn to our fourth speaker. Our fourth speaker will be Dr. Su Song, and she's an associate professor from the Institute of International Studies at Fudan University in Shanghai. Dr. Su Song has also enriched herself with a lot of engagements and experiences with universities and organizations from Indonesia as visiting fellowships, namely with Universitas Muhammadiyah in Yogyakarta and Paramadina University in Jakarta. And as a doctor from Tsinghua University, she has authored, co-authored, and edited a number of books. And due to her keen interest in Indonesia, ASEAN, and Southeast Asia, Dr. Su Song is a prolific writer and has written extensively on Indonesia topics in books, chapters, journals, and articles. Without further ado, I now invite Dr. Su Song to share her thoughts on policy alignment and priorities for the next phase of the Indonesia-China Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. Dr. Su Song, the floor is all yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning. It's an honor for me to join you today, and thank you very much for the kind invitation from Ambassador Johari Oramangun and from Mr. Wang Huiyao. And it's also an honor for me to join the distinguished guests, Ambassador Imran Jondan and Ambassador Rizal Sukma, who have contributed tremendously to China-Indonesia relations, and also the renowned professors, Professor Ren Xiao and Mr. Enard. It's really an honor for me. And I think over the past decade, the relationship between China and Indonesia has reached an unprecedented level of depth and trust. Frequent exchanges between our two leaders isn't just symbolic, but it really built real institutional and personal trust at the highest level. And I also want to emphasize the importance of the cooperation in the implementation level. More than the 3 decades, I think both sides have developed familiarity with each other's working styles and systems. And this quiet professionalism at the implementation level has made it possible to deliver complex projects like the Jakarta-Bandung high-speed railway. And as in Indonesian proverb says, sedikit demi sedikit, lama-lama menjadi bukit. So little by little, a hill becomes a mountain. It is with this trust that we build in this way that we have accomplished a lot of difficult projects and achieved a lot achievements. And economically, I think the partnership has become a pillar of both countries' development strategies. China has been Indonesia's largest trade partner for more than 11 consecutive years. And in recent years, China's largest investment in the Asia-Pacific is in Indonesia. And Chinese investment in the infrastructure, downstream industries, and digital economy has contributed a lot to the technological transfer, job creation, and industrial upgrading in Indonesia. Equally important, the BRI initiative and Indonesia's Golden Indonesia 2045 vision have demonstrated a high level of compatibility. Both sides emphasize mutual benefit, national interest, and respect for each other, and a clear focus on delivering tangible benefits to ordinary people. I think this is the very important reason why cooperation has remained stable and resilient, even when the global environment has become more uncertain recently. Under the leadership of President Prabowo Subianto, we are now witnessing new dynamics that deserve careful attention. First one is the political trust has been further consolidated. It is highly symbolic that President Prabowo Subianto chose China as one of his first overseas trip destination, both as president-elect and president. This year, he also visited China the 3rd time to attend the military parade. These choices sent a strong message that Indonesia's view of China as a pivotal long-term partner, and the upgrading of the bilateral ties to a community with a shared future with regional and international significance reflects China's recognition of Indonesia's leadership in both the region and across the global south. Indonesia has also demonstrated constructive engagement by supporting the major global initiatives proposed by China. So this does not imply that both sides think identical in terms of the way forward or the future global order, but it reflects a shared interest in stability, prosperity, development, and a more inclusive and just global order. Many of us may have noticed that a recent new security strategy released by the United States. And in the context of the US strategic contraction, the old assumptions that the Asia-Pacific security order, especially those based on a permanent US presence in this region, may be reconsidered right now. And now is a time for China and Indonesia to have an open and forward-looking manner and such conversation about the kind of regional order they want to build. And these choices we make will provide an important reference point for the countries in the region. Secondly, security and maritime cooperation between the two countries are gradually expanding. The establishment of the 2+2 dialogue mechanism between the foreign and defense ministers and joint exercises such as the Peace Garuda last year have added new layers of communication and confidence building. These steps are still at an early stage, but they reflect a shared desire to enhance regional common security, prevent misunderstandings, and manage risks in a complex environment. At the same time, maritime issues have been managed through a pragmatic and compartmentalized manner. Rather than allowing differences to dominate the overall relationship, both sides have shown maturity by separating dispute from the overall diplomatic relations. Our recent joint maritime development initiatives demonstrate how difficulties can be transformed into opportunities, and these efforts have generated positive regional responses. We also witnessed that Malaysia and Brunei started to have a similar dialogue with China. And this suggests that equal dialogue and practical cooperation are increasingly seen as preferred path for managing the South China Sea issues. It also reminds me of another Indonesian proverb that air yang tenang menghanyutkan. Still water possesses a lot of strength. The quiet diplomacy often produces the most durable results. And thirdly, China-Indonesia relations are no longer only shaped by governments. We also witness that local governments, SOEs, private companies, and also think tanks and media organizations and even individual influencers are becoming more and more important players in the bilateral relations. And this is particularly important, especially to the business community that present today. It means more channels, more partners, and more flexible forms of cooperation, and ultimately a more resilient bond between our two countries and our two peoples. Looking ahead, I remain optimistic about the future of China-Indonesia relations. There are strong reasons for this optimism. Both countries are major economies of the global south, and both support multilateralism and Asian and ASEAN centrality. Indonesia's decision to join BRICS creates new platforms to engage more with China on global economy and political issues. Public surveys in Indonesia consistently show expectation for stable and constructive relations with China in the years ahead. For the business community, the medium-term outlook remains quite promising. Indonesia's ongoing industrialization and downstreaming policy and green transition create real opportunities for business communities to engage. At the same time, China's experience in supply chains and scale manufacturing can complement Indonesia's large market resources and demographic dividends. Of course, no relationship is without problems. The global environment is becoming more and more fragmented, and strategic competitions between major powers is still intensifying. And also from time to time, public debates on Chinese investment, like the environmental problems and labor issues, continue to appear. But I believe that there should be seen not as a fundamental obstacles, but as a normal process of a maturing partnership. A strong relationship is not one without differences, but one that can manage differences through dialogue, institutions, and mutual respect. To conclude, I think looking forward, 4 simple principles should guide us. The first one is keeping our eyes on the future and anticipating the unforeseen. The second is strengthening mutual trust at all levels. And the third, deepening practical cooperation that delivers visible benefits to ordinary people. And the last one is maintaining open and honest communication when challenges arise. I'm confident that under the guidance of our 2 leaders and with strong support of diplomats, business leaders, and communities, China-Indonesia's relations will continue to move forward in a stable, constructive, and forward-looking manner. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Su Song. That was a very interesting and thorough presentation. I think that some of the elements that I can pick from your presentations, you definitely mentioned that under the new administration that there will be new dynamics and that the 2 countries should exploit the current political trust, the community with our commitment to the community with a shared future, and then the inclusive global order. And also you highlight the prospective modalities to pursue in a maturing relationship between the 2 countries. Thank you very much. And last but not least, I would now call on our final speaker, Dr. Einar Tangen, to share his thoughts on strengthening political and security cooperation. Dr. Einar earned his Juris Doctor from Marquette University Law School, and he is a CIGI Senior Fellow and widely recognized commentator on global political and economic affairs with a focus on China's evolving role in international governance. A former lawyer, entrepreneur, and investment banker, he currently resides in Beijing, where he advises on urban planning, economic strategy, and cross-border investment. With decades of experience spanning China and the United States, he has held senior roles in government, law, and business. Dr. Einar, without further ado, the floor is yours.
I always like it when people introduce me. I sound far more impressive to me from them than I actually see in the mirror. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the world. I was just in Doha. I think the consensus there was quite clearly the international order is broken. The United States put out a security document making very clear that they've abandoned all pretense that this is anything but the law of the jungle. So what do? When the game board has been broken, it is up to countries, all right, that are still interested in having a global game to put one together. And that means that the old rules are gone. The ideas of colonial despotism, rapaciously running around the world, taking things, it is time for that to change. We're looking at an era of civilization. So let me go back to some principles, all right? Because when you start creating a board, the question is, on what? What are going to be the rules of the game? What are your assumptions? Here are some assumptions you can think about. There are 3 economies in the world. 2 of them are necessities. The last one is choice. First necessity is, what do you need to live every day? You need water, clothing, food, shelter, things, right? Then, what do you have to have if you're living together in a society? All right? And those are basic needs. Infrastructure. You need water, sewer, et cetera, et cetera. Last one is choice. Whether you decide to buy a T-shirt that costs $1 in China, or the same T-shirt that costs $1 in China but is shipped to, let us say, Italy, they stamp a logo on it and they sell it for $100. It is the same T-shirt. It's made in the same factory, actually, but the difference is that logo, brand. But it's a choice. And whether you're today, the majority of what we do is make choices. And it's not always easy. Everyone says, oh, I want to be middle class. I want to raise my country to middle class. Well, yes, from a point of view of necessities and things like this. But guess what? Being middle class comes with a lot of baggage. Everybody, not everybody, most people I know who are in the middle class area regret every decision they made or didn't make. You understand what I'm saying? I should have gone to that school. I should have married that guy. I should have had that job, right? And there's always these regrets. So it's very difficult. But this rolls into this idea of choice. Choice is the majority of the world's economy. And it is the way that we manufacture demand so that we can keep ourselves working. And this is going to increase. The United States has 2%. We used to have somewhere around 70% of our nation, just as in China, devoted to agriculture, growing what was necessary to live. Today, we are less than 2%. And in all developed countries, you see that declining. And that will continue to decline. What does that mean? With less effort, I can produce all the food that I need to eat. So we're moving in this area where a lot of the personal necessities for many countries, not all, can be answered. Then we get into infrastructure. This is where China has really shined. They have said, well, if you don't have the necessities of infrastructure, and Indonesia knows this very well, you're experiencing climate change, you're going to rebuild areas, which unfortunately will probably be hit next year or the following year with very similar things. So here we're in a situation where we have two necessities, one choice. What do we do with it if you're recrafting the global game? Well, let's talk a little bit about what the challenges are. Obviously, climate change, finance, right? And also global uncertainty. Global uncertainty is being created by the United States, and I say that without reservation. I'm an American. All right, our policies have upended the world. I talked about that. So how do you address what I see these major issues, which are really security, development, all right, sovereignty? These were all covered by my colleagues, all right, and the future path. So in terms of climate change, it is time to stop asking the developed world, which already feels under pressure, which is already lagging the world in terms of economic progress. GDP of the G7 has been lagging the rest of the world for the last 10 years, all right? And that is not going to change. So asking a group that feels defensive, that feels that they are not able to be what they used to be is pointless. And you saw this at COP30. There's nothing that came out of there except one realization, and that is if the rest of the world wants to address this, because it's their issues, they're going to have to do it themselves. So then the question is, how do you do that? It's simple. Stop being cursed by resources, and this applies to Indonesia. There is no reason to be cursed. You have a good percentage of the world's nickel. Nickel is absolutely essential to certain kinds of batteries. There are certain batteries which maybe it is not as essential, but there are certain parts in terms of rapid energy transfer where nickel becomes very important. Stainless steel, all sorts of new materials that are there. Why isn't there a nickel consortium just the way there is with oil? Why is it that 4 countries in the world export 70% of the world's coffee, and the 4 companies that control the entire supply chain of coffee, which we're enjoying today, are European and American, where they do not grow beans? It is time to put aside the old mercantilistic systems which have failed. While they could maintain, economic and military and political superiority, it worked. But those days have gone. And we have seen that dramatically in this last few days with the statement. So instead of having a resource curse, put together consortiums of countries that control these strategic and necessary things and get value. And by value, what I mean is when the coffee price goes up, guess who gets the pressure? The guy at the bottom, the farmers. They actually go to farmers and said, hey, you know, tough times. You got to take less. Do they take less? Absolutely not. So putting together these consortiums is absolutely crucial. One, to make sure those who are producing have a sustainable livelihood. Second, for your own development of your countries. If you do not do the development, don't count on anybody else doing it for you. And I think it's clear. And then the last part is climate change. All right? You're not going to get any money meaningful. You're getting a lot of empty promises. So it is time to turn it around and say, we will price our commodities at rates that we can survive and thrive, where we can take care of the issues created by other countries over many hundreds of years. Because if you don't do that, guess what? You won't have anything sitting around waiting for something good to happen. How has that been working out lately? It hasn't. All right, let's go to finance. Well, one other thing. We were having a nice discussion yesterday. One of the areas where a country with 16,000 islands, Indonesia, has in common with countries from Oceania and also the Caribbean is that together you control a vast amount. There's 50 island countries. So that's 1/4 of the UN. Then you start looking at their fishing rights around the world. If they came together as a consortium and said, we are going to have a fisheries index, commodity control, where we make sure that we get value for our fishing rights, that there's an established formula that allows us to do well. These are the types of things you need to have. In terms of financing, separate subject, but related. The financing is a mishmash. I was an investment banker. I can tell you today, expectations within the private financial side are between 5 and 15 years. The needs of countries to bring about real transformation in industries, education, social welfare, all things that will lead to a higher GDP are in the 40 to 50-year range. So obviously, how do you take expectations that I want to get my profit out in minimum 15 years? Most people are at 5 years now. Some are at 3. It seems to be shortening, just like our attention spans. The only way you can do that is to have new financing vehicles. And that means that there has to be a way in which you have sovereign debt, and this has to come from the Global South. These have to come from the New Development Bank, AIIB. Expect them to take longer saying and say, look, we can index our return to the increase in GDP from these countries over 40 years. We print money. And I'm not somebody who says you can print your way into prosperity, but you can take longer-term risks when you put a series of nations together who are backing a common means by which countries can have this actual transformation. You know, going to a country in Africa and saying, hey, Somalia, I want to, you need to upgrade. Do something about education. Yeah, you're going to do that in 5 years? You're going to educate everybody in 5 years and start seeing things? Absolutely not. And those are the kinds of things that we have to start paying attention to. Global certainty, especially when it comes to security. Security is something that in the past was imposed. We were talking about empires. Empires ran around the world and they just took things, kind of like what Donald Trump is trying to return to today. Saying that, you know, if you're in Greenland or Canada or South America, you're ours. All right? This is just the way it is. We're a big country. We're going to take whatever we need to take. How do you fight back against that? You have to have new ways of thinking that are more civilizationally oriented. For instance, South China Seas. You can talk all you want about code of conduct. It's going to be long. You can eventually get there. I'm certain of that. But there has to be a way of rethinking this. If we cannot ultimately agree, let us agree to not agree. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's say that China went to all the claimants who have multiple claims. It's not just China versus everyone else, as everybody knows here. There are multiple claims in different areas. They say, all areas in dispute, guess what? Let's put them into a trust for the benefit of all of us. All right? These areas cannot be effectively developed as long as there's political uncertainty. So get rid of it. Say, you know, we're all here. You want to have a shared future for mankind? Well, let's do it. Put it all into a trust. We figure out the formula for benefiting from it. But then you start to have a community of shared interests. This is absolutely crucial to the way that you start thinking about things. There has to be new thinking. For instance, Russia. Russia is convinced, I studied Russian history, they always want a buffer state around them, under the theory that it's harder to invade if you have forewarning. But at a time when you have hypersonic missiles, which we have currently no things, whether you're 5 meters away or 5,000 meters away, it's the same outcome. You can't defend against it. Borders are becoming less important. So when you start thinking about a lot of the things that have been talked about by my colleagues today, we need to find new ways of thinking about them where it is not us across the table, but as my good friend Charles Liu has always pointed out, try to be on the same side of the table, looking at the problem, trying to figure out how it can be solved. If the problem is between us, we're going to negotiate. All right? It becomes political. But if we're on the same side, looking at it, thinking, how can we make this problem go away? Then there are opportunities to do that. It requires a change in thinking. So let us hope that goes. Do I have anything else? Oh, yes. The last part is, how do you assemble things? China's talked about 4 initiatives, and I'm very keen on them. This idea that everyone should be secure, that no one's security should depend on the insecurity of another, that there has to be a path to development determined by the country, not by somebody else, right? That there has to be a respect for sovereignty. This has more to it than currently out there, because if you're going to respect a country, you have to understand it. And today, especially in China and other nations, there's a lack of understanding. There's a lot of trade, but there's no real in-depth understanding. Is this important? Well, it wasn't important under the US. You just need to know the US, maybe a few neighbors, and that's it. But going forward, there's a new potential economic driver that can make a lot of this possible and fits very well with models developing nations, emerging nations. And that is small, medium-sized businesses. Why do I say that? Small, medium-sized businesses are the backbone of the global economy. They are where big businesses come from. So if you want to encourage them, encourage entrepreneurship, encourage trade internationally, the tools have now been made available. In the past, to go from one place to another was too difficult. Letters of credit, understanding, the different rules in this country, that country, this country, everything. Now you can do away with that. You can advertise. The logistics are there to deliver, and then there's the payment systems to come back. And if you have a question about what the ultimate cost is, you can put it into an AI, and it will identify everything that you need to do. Why do I talk about this? I cannot sell anything to somebody I don't know, because I don't know what they want. So when I say that education is important, it is absolutely crucial if you're going to use this as a new economic driver for international trade. But going back to my original things, it's about choices. Small companies fill niches. They can present more choices to people. And this results in economic activity. My last point is it is time to start thinking about the values. The 4 initiatives we talked about, I didn't talk about global governance, but obviously you need to have a framework in which you can talk instead of throwing tanks at each other. So China has proposed a set of values that I just covered in terms of economic development and things like this, instead of ideologies. The ideologies have divided us for many, many years, and they're not going to change. But if we can have common values upon which are based on human needs, I think there's some hope. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Anna, for that most engaging and thoughtful presentations. I'm amazed with some of your points, actually. It's true that I think that nation's choice of policy is the one that determines the outcome of the global game. And I think that you're completely on the spot when you said that, yes, it happens to several resource-cursed states, like most in Southeast Asia. And you have also proposed a new financing vehicles from the Global South and the interlinkages between COC as well as the community with a shared future, which you said begins with community with shared interest. I think I value that completely. And will that last speaker, I think now we can enter the next session, would be the question and answers session. Let's take 1 or 2 or 3 questions. Well, there's already people holding up their hands. It's good, that means we are doing something very fruitful today. Maybe we just take one from that side, that lady, yeah? Please mention your name as well as your institutions where you come from, and to whom does your question address?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm very honored to be sitting here today in this room with wonderful experts from the industries itself. And I'm really honored to listen to all insightful key speech from His Excellencies and professors. And also from the Mr. Einar as well, from the industry professionals. First of all, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Jenica, and I'm an Indonesian currently pursuing a master's degree in international studies, which is a double degree program in Peking University as in London School of Economics. So hopefully in 1 year or so, I would join His Excellency Rizal Sukma as LSE alumni as well. But yeah, I have so many questions, but I will just ask 2 questions in this time. First is to Professor Ren Xiao. You mentioned that there's like a lot of capabilities in how China maintain harmony, and it has shown that there's a successful 12 harmonic relationship that is maintained so far out of 14, which is a really impressive number. But I would like to ask if you have any like particular ideas of the guiding principles that helps to build this sort of harmonic relationship in terms of the Chinese foreign policy guiding principles, and considering the ever extremely high interdependency across nation states nowadays, which has been beyond the what history has recorded in terms of how nation state needs to be interdependent, but also an increasingly sensitive relationship that often might occur through times and times. Like, so do you think there's a specific guiding principles from the Chinese foreign policy that has always most of the time may be successful in maintaining the relationship? And second is for His Excellency Rizal Sukma. I would like to ask, when you mentioned about how you believe that there must be a way to transform the sea into ocean of cooperation, in which there must be a way. Like, personally, I'm curious about what do you think of the key ideas to resolve this strategically? Do you think you have a certain proposal in mind to prove the conflict prevention and mechanism that is necessary? So that's my 2 questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the questions. Since I don't like to be in debt, I think I would prefer for the speakers to immediately respond to the questions. Maybe I'll start with Dr. Ren Xiao and then go to Dr. Rizal Sukma.
Well, thank you for the question. I think, you are asking about something like China's principles in handling its relationship with other countries. Let me be more concrete. For example, because someone mentioned the South China Sea. It has been an issue for China and Southeast Asian countries. I want to point out that we were making progress in terms of come up with not just principles, but more concrete measures to handle the issue. For example, China and Southeast Asian countries, China and ASEAN, came up with that document called Declaration of Conduct in South China Sea. And later, they decided to try to move forward from a declaration of conduct to a code of conduct. And they were making progress. I have to point out that, as I said to my American friends, if you let the regional countries, Southeast Asian countries and China, to handle the issue themselves, they will make progress. They can eventually find a way out in terms of the South China Sea issue. However, there have been external factors and the actions by the external powers. And that influence, I must say, has not been a positive one. So what we are seeing is that there have been external involvement by the United States, for example, by Australia, for example, even Canada, countries like France, countries like this. And that has complicated the whole picture of South China Sea. So I hope that we can have less external influence or involvement. And the regional countries, China and Southeast Asian countries, they sit down and talk with each other to find a way out. And that, I believe, that will happen. That will happen if we allow time for them to make efforts and make gradual progress. I think they, as I mentioned earlier, they have the wisdom and the capability to find a way out. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your response. Now I turn to Dr. Rizal Sukma.
Well, thank you. I think the question is related, to what Professor Ren Xiao just answered. How to transform, the oceans, into the area of cooperation, especially with regard to the territorial disputes like in the South China Sea. I think, we need to be creative in thinking about the COC, right? And ASEAN has been very creative. 2002, DOC. And then they agreed, let's move from DOC to COC. And then a couple of years ago, they agreed, to come up with guidelines on how, the agreement to accelerate the COC. And then last year, they agreed to issue guidelines on how to accelerate, the COC. So I think this process requires a strategic patience. So you have to be very, very, patient in order to actually move forward. It might take long, but I think the process is very important too. So it's not only, the end of the process, but also how you proceed, I think is also important. The second point is that the COC, in my, understanding, will comprise of 3 parts. The first part actually on the CBM, the confidence building measures. It will, I think, list all the activities that you can do, among the countries in Southeast Asia and China that can build that confidence and trust among them. The second part is the conflict prevention part of it. So it would be a set of rules and so on, when something happened, then you have rules and procedures on how to address them. And the third part is actually the crisis management. So if something really bad happened, then we already have something in place that we can use in order to resolve and manage that crisis. But this has been going on for 23 years that we tried to draft. Yes, true that now we entered the third reading of the, we just have the coherent draft, one single draft. Then there have been like 3 readings, 3 times of the discussion between China and ASEAN. But I think, we need to also focus on parts of the whole package. So in my view, it is important to look at probably the second part of it, the conflict prevention mechanism, instead of looking at the entire document, the entire complete COC, because otherwise you will take years and years. So probably we can actually allocate and focus our attention to create what sort of conflict prevention mechanism that later on can be incorporated into the whole COC. So I think thinking in terms of the building blocks probably is one way of looking at how that we can deal and come up with a breakthrough in the current process which has been going on and on and on, which in my view is quite dangerous too, because it will lower the confidence in the process of this important undertaking between China and ASEAN. So let's go into that kind of the way of doing things. The third point that I would like also to mention, initially the whole idea of creating the conflict prevention mechanism, crisis management, and so on within the larger Asia-Pacific architecture, it ideally should be done within the East Asia Summit, framework. But I'm less optimistic now with regard to the East Asia Summit. So that's why, in my presentation, I mentioned about let's try to think about how to bring in the strategic dimension into the RCEP, which is, I think, more manageable. So at the moment. So, in that context, probably, we can also try to come up with the ideas on how to facilitate differences or dispute, among member states, not only in trade and investment, but also in other issues that also, I think, has the economic implication, of the security issues, such as issues that I already mentioned, earlier. So that's basically, some of the issues that, we can look at in order, to have this, a commitment to transform the sea as the ocean of competition at the moment into the oceans of cooperations. But of course, cooperation on those non-security issues, should continue. And I think ASEAN and China already have a very good list of activities and cooperations together in order to address, all those issues that can benefit everyone in the region. Because China and ASEAN do believe that the ocean is a public goods. So it's basically, the owner of the ocean is all the humankind. Might sound a bit idealistic, but that's basically what it is. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the explanation. We would like to apologize on behalf of the organizers due to the time constraints that we have. We would end the question and answers there, but feel free to contact each of the personal speakers right on the stage, right after this conference. But before I close this session, I would like to give one more round for each of the speakers to give one punchline, one short sentence, very concise, very short, about of the way ahead for Indonesia and China bilateral relations. I will start with Ambassador Imran Khan.
Thank you very much. After listening carefully to what have been said by so many speakers, distinguished speakers in this very important meeting, we can basically conclude that the relationship between Indonesia and China is of critical in terms of maintaining the security architecture in this region, because basically Indonesia and China are the two biggest nations in the world apart from India. So I think the more we work together with China, Indonesia will also contribute to the peace and stability in our region. In this context, I think Indonesia, as I mentioned early on, should also be able to enter the supply chains of China at the higher level, because we don't want to be as always like, supplying country to support the supply chains of China. So again, I would like to underline the point that it is high time for us, for China and Indonesia, to establish cooperation in order to be able to help produce products that are needed not only by the two big markets, but as well as beyond. This, I think, will bring the prosperity for the two nations, as well as to the rest of the Indo-Pacific region. I think those are the points that I would like to convey to you, and I hope that Ambassador Johari Oratmangun, as well as chairman of the China Center for Globalization, would bring this home and encourage those related agencies and institutions to help us achieve the objective that we would like to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you. Please, Doctor.
I just want to say that I'm very optimistic about China and Indonesia working together in the years ahead. And we have many reasons to believe that. Thank you.
Thank you.
For me, it's a close Indonesia-China relation is no longer a need. It is a strategic necessity. Thank you.
I think I always have the same punchline for such occasions, that is unity in diversity. That although we have different priorities and different approaches for development, I still believe that we have a similar goal to building a world anew and towards a more just and prosperous world order in the future. Thank you.
If you want a better future, you have to create it. And at this point, there is an opportunity. So to the many young people here, remember, we are trying to give you our experience and advice, but it's up to you to do a better job than we did. Thank you.
With that last round of remarks, I would like now to please give a round of applause for our 5 prominent speakers who have been very constructive and very fruitful. And with that, I would like to conclude the first panel, and I would like to give the floor back to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your active participation. This concludes the discussion for panel 1. We now continue with panel discussion 2, deepening economic, education, cultural, and people-to-people cooperation. This session will be moderated by Mrs. Mabel Miao Lu. Mrs. Mabel, the floor is yours. We will now like to invite the next 5 distinguished speakers for panel session 2. Our first speaker is Professor Xu Liping. We also invite Mr. Gregorius Sunarto, Mr. Lu Ruquan, and Mrs. Zun Ahmed Khan to please come on to the stage. Ms. Jona Widatgo Putri will be joining us via Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind introduction, dear Ambassador Johari and Your Excellencies, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning still. We should speed up our process. Actually, we has exceeded the time limit by a large amount. So I kindly require every speakers to limit your speech in 5 minutes. Then we can not be the block between our speeches and the lunch. Actually, our bilateral relation is blooming. Above sessions and the keynote speeches already mentioned that Indonesia is a fantastic, comprehensive partner of China. China has remained the largest trading partner of Indonesia for consecutive 12 years, remains the second largest destination for Indonesia students. See, we have an amount of those young people. Say hi to you, everybody. And I think you are the very important tie between our significant powers between Indonesia and China. Our session 2 actually focuses on the deepening economic, education, culture, and the people-to-people cooperation. We have an expanded lineup of 5 distinguished speakers for this session. We will cover everything from macroeconomics to energy to education and culture. First of all, to kick off this panel, we will start with the foundation of our friendship, and we'd like to review our bilateral economic field. First of all, I would like to invite Ms. Jona Widatgo Putri, who is an expert in international diplomacy and strategic investment, currently serving as a special advisor to the chairman of Indonesia National Economic Council and the vice chairwoman of the Bilateral Committee for China under KADIN. So Mrs. Jona is on the Zoom. We would like to invite her to do your speech. So let's have a look at the screen.
So is that okay? Jona's here. Yeah. Hi, how are you? Yeah, please.
Hi, thank you for the invitation. First of all, of course, thank you, Excellency Johari Oratmangun, our dear brother who is in Beijing. And of course, thank you for CCG also for co-hosting this event, and Mabel for moderating. So my deepest apology for not being able to attend personally in Beijing. If not, usually I will be running around on the stage during my presentation. You know, it's I have a very deep ties, I think, with China, with my master degree and also doctoral degree, graduated from Peking University and Fudan. So I'm always very happy, I think, to attend all the China relationship event. However, I think the past 1.5 months I've been in different city of China for 4 times. So my deepest apology, Ambassador Johari, that I cannot be present physically today there. So I think on my slides, I've explained a little bit, of course, for the 75 years of the bilateral relationship between China and Indonesia, but the previous speakers have mentioned a lot also. If probably the slides can be shown in the next screen, that will be, I think, more helpful than just speaking it out loud. Is there any problem for the slides?
There's slides. You can continue your speech, Jona.
Okay. Okay. So I think on the first slide, I've actually mentioned about the 75 years of bilateral relationship, but we have a lot of masters and Laoshi and ambassadors here who already profoundly elaborate on that discussion. The next one, please. But I think the highlight here is in the middle, that I wanted to say that, you know, the BIG synergy, which I say the triple helix synergy between the business and that intellectuals and government is the highlights why our relationship are sustainable, and we had a lot of achievement until today. So the business sector, of course, as one of the drivers of economic, I think has been doing tremendous projects in hard structure, but I believe there's still a homework in the soft structures that I will explain later on. And of course, the intellectuals, like those of you who are gathered here today, you know, are actually the foundation, or the middle part foundation of our continuous relationship within Indonesia and China. And of course, the government. I think the previous speakers in the first panel have mentioned about, you know, the strong trust, the mutual respect also between the two leaderships and among all levels, until the from the central government until the local government within Indonesia and China, and this is of course very important. I think lately, even our, not only in the government but also in the business sectors at the Chamber of Commerce, I think almost every, well, not every day, but at least in 1 month, we will receive more than 5 or 6 delegations from different cities, municipalities, or provinces from China who are trying to engage more and more with Indonesia. But we do have a lot of example here that, you know, the collaboration between business, intellectual, and government is actually why our relationship is being more and more sustained. Like the collaboration between GM, ITB, and CSU. They had donated more than 20 million US dollars for the establishment of a joint lab for advanced material and hydrometallurgy in Indonesia. This is being the first joint lab in a massive and high-tech collaboration between Indonesia and China, and we've created a lot of talents. So I think the drivers of economic, later on the big homework will be on the talents, and we had prepared for that. I mean, if you build smelters, if you build, you know, infrastructures, maybe you can build it in 3 months, 6 months, or even 18 months. But if you want to create and build the human structures, the soft structures, you at least need 3 to 4 years. That's why I think we need to flash back and, of course, prepare well for that. The Huawei, University of Indonesia, and other university collaboration is also another fine examples. The UNU, Yogyakarta Scholarship, the Jongsan Hospital that we reach out, and of course the Shehe. There's a lot of hospital now that had H2H, or hospital and hospital collaboration with Indonesia. And then of course, you know, vocational training. So we don't only focus, of course, in the higher education, but we focus also on the vocational and industrial training. So this is, I think, very important because we do need more and more Indonesian labor that are, you know, more in line with the high-tech and industry in China. Indonesia have a bonus of demography. Of course, we're the 4th most populous country in the world. Although sometimes if I go to China and I ask some of our Chinese friends, they don't really realize that Indonesia is the 4th most populous country in the world, and we do have a demographic bonus. Our population by the age of 15 till 65 years is in between 75 till 80% of our whole population. That is a green bonus, but also at the same time is our challenges and our homework. That's why I think whether previously in the previous government and also in the current government, in my part as the what called the National Economic Council, and previously at the coordinating ministry, we always encourage business to actually engage with the intellectuals, to engage with think tank, to engage with the vocational training, and this is very, very important. I will not explain furthermore, I think, on the bilateral trade and the main commodities import from China and Indonesia, since you said previously I was told 10 minutes and then 8 minutes and then you said 5, so trying to be brief here. So I'll just go to the next slide. for, I think the deep and enduring partnership between our countries. I think one of the key success for our collaboration is not only mutual respect, mutual trust, and mutual benefits, but it's actually mutual responsibility and mutual continuity. And this is, I think, that has been shown by the previous leadership, whether it's from our President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono for the Comprehensive Strategic Partnership, and then after that to Joko Widodo and current Prabowo Subianto. The previous speakers has mentioned, of course, the strong ties and strong friendship between the two leaders among previous and current government of Indonesia. So this have to be continued. We cannot have a policy or a big grand strategy and project to be implemented only in 5 years. We need at least 10 or 15 years. We need continuity. And this is what also we've been highlighting to a lot of our Indonesian current government as well. A lot of big projects in Indonesia or Chinese investment in Indonesia definitely bring economic growth, but they're not necessarily perfect. But I think no one is perfect in this world, and we need continuity. We need the current government also to support the previous project. We need the trust also to be continued. If there is some disadvantages or something that need to be corrected, then we need to work together also to correct that. And I think in terms of the respect, trust from the Chinese leadership, we've seen that to be in continuity, and hopefully, of course, that will shown in the next chapter of the coming more 75 years and more years to go between Indonesia and China. We have a strong alignment in the Indonesia Astachita and the Chinese green transition. We're focusing on the digital economy, green and blue economy, infrastructure, SME entrepreneurship, creative industry, science, tech, agro, maritime, and downstream industry. But I think it's the same as in China. We're looking for a more high quality and modernization also for Indonesia, or 高质量现代化建设. I think this is very
Jonah,
important.
sorry, just 1 minute. Leave it for you, as time is
Yeah.
over.
Yeah, but that's not our fault actually. Anyway, because I was told 10 minutes before, and then 8, and then 5. So the two countries, of course, enjoy this relationship, and it's very complementary. I think in the next slides, I've explained also on the complementary partnership. And I think we're moving forward from the goal, from the old green downstreaming, which is like what we've seen in the Qingsan Gongye Yuanqu and stuff, to the new green and new blue. So meaning that, not only focusing on the mineral downstreaming, but also I think we need to focus more on the new green, like agriculture, like herbal medicine, and also the new blue, like the industrialization of seaweed, industrialization of salt, and like the coming, collaboration on durian and a lot of the agriculture and herbal collaboration. So actually, these other resources of Indonesia might have more added value, might have more economic value than the mineral downstreaming. But of course, the mineral downstreaming is one step. I think the next step for the future of Indonesia and China relationship doesn't need to be only on the mineral downstreaming, but it's on the green energy and industrial transformation, as I mentioned on the slides, and also on the new green and on the new blue. And of course, I think we still have a homework also for people to people, for talents, and also for connectivity between Indonesia and China. I think one of the reasons also for me to be not be able to be there is the connectivity to Beijing. We have a lot of cities in China which have direct flight from Jakarta, more than 1 flight or 2 flights or even 3 flights in a day, but not to Beijing. Beijing and Jakarta doesn't have a direct flight every day in a week. So I think that is still a homework in terms of connectivity. Next, since you said still very limited time. So I think China and Indonesia at this 75 years, we have achieved a lot, but of course there's more challenges and opportunities for the way forward. And soft environment or ruan, hanjing jianshe, I think is still a gap, and we need to work together for the regulatory complexity, IP protection, standard alignment, data governance, certification, etc. We're trying to build a standard alignment and certification for durian, for example. That is still a big homework, although durian has been in China from other countries, but we're seeing still a lot of homework from Indonesia. Talent and innovation bottleneck, this is something that is very, very critical for us, I think, to solve for the dual country program. We still have a shortage on the AI, high-tech, biotech, etc. So this is another homework. And also, of course, opportunities. Financing and risk perception. We already established a lot of financing framework, which is good with Bank of China, with ICBC, etc. We see the Panda bond, Dim Sum bond, etc. But I think there's still much to do on the financing sectors, which I will not elaborate because of time limitation, but we can discuss later on. And of course, the supply chain resilience and geopolitical pressure. This is also a challenge for us, I think, in the future. And trade imbalances and market access. For the strategic opportunities, I'm seeing a lot of new green growth, of course, here for co-creating value chains in agriculture, herbal medicine, biotech, EV ecosystem, green energy storage, and carbon solutions. And this has been a lot of demand, I think, from Chinese government and Chinese industry to us. And new blue economy, as seaweed downstreaming, salt, marine logistics, sustainable fisheries, and connectivity. And of course, digital economy and future tax is on the pipeline also for our collaboration, along with the industrial downstreaming and complementary downstreaming between using Chinese technology and Indonesian resources. Of course, people to people and talent corridors. This is the homework, but also a very strategic opportunities between the two countries. And this is not limited also to only education, but also sport and youth innovation program. And the high standard connectivity, not only high speed railway like Jakarta-Bandung, but I think there's a lot of things that we need to do to improve. And of course, again, continuity. I think continuity is, long-term stability for our future-ready partnership in the futures. So as I believe, 国之交在于民相亲，民相亲在于心相通. So if between China and Indonesia people, we don't know each other, I don't think we can move forward. And we need more and more deeper unforeseen knowledge, I think, for us to move even forward. Next, I think I will close this slide also for the Chamber of Commerce of Indonesia and China. We wanted to turn the vision into action. So we believe that I think this can be a good platform. As I said, the BIG, Business Intellectual Government Platform, can be realized through the Indonesia Chamber of Commerce China Committee. Next, closing, I think as we mentioned, 水有源，木有根. Water has its sources, trees have its roots. I think my good friend Xue Song also mentioned sedikit demi sedikit lama-lama menjadi bukit. Step by step, we build mountains of achievement together. And we need to do it step by step. We need to do it together and not alone. So let us move from resource trade to strategic industrial collaboration with high impact long-term and people-centric investment. I think people is the key. Creating great people, manufacturing great talents is our next homework, but by doing so, I think
Jonah,
there will be
thank
a
you.
very good future for Indonesia and China. Thank you.
Thank you so much, for your very comprehensive review and unlock the new drivers of economic cooperation between Indonesia and China. So next we move to next speaker, who is Professor Xu Liping, come from he's a director of the Center for Southeast Asian Studies at the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, CAS. We would like to invite Professor Xu. He is a leading expert in this field. Will share his insights on deepening people-to-people connectivity through strengthened education and research partnership between our relation. Floor is yours. As Professor Xu will speak in Chinese, we can use the translation device for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator, Madam Miao Lu. Yang terhormat Bapak Duta Besar Pak Johari orang Mawun, yang saya hormati Bapak Rizal Sukma, rekan saya, our friend, Your Excellencies, President of CCG, Henry Wang, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. 我就用汉语来解释吧啊。Actually, I have prepared PPT in Chinese, so I want to save some time in Chinese. 我讲我讲3点啊。
3 points. First, China and Indonesia. It's a cooperation background and foundation. This year marks the 35th anniversary of the bilateral ties, and this also marks the 70th anniversary of the Bandung Conference and the 80th anniversary of the independence of Indonesia, and also the 80th anniversary of the United Nations and the success of the World Anti-Fascist War. At its critical point, it's very important for the future for two countries. Both China and Indonesia has maintained strategic independence. Given the uncertainty in the world, strategic independence is very important for developing countries. This is my point 1. This is a cooperation foundation. Second, between China and Indonesia, we have many common identities. First is we are both developing countries. We are major developing countries. We need to address poverty and achieve prosperity. This is our common challenge. Second, we are all the members of emerging economies. One important feature is we need to drive the economy through innovation. We need to make our economy dynamic, and we are both important engines for economic growth in the world. The third common identity is both China and Indonesia are important force of the global south. In today's world landscape, as the members of global south, both of us have the responsibility and obligation to make our own voice for global governance and to build a more fair and just global order, and a global order in economy and a global order in politics. And this is my point 1. Point 2, what are the cooperation areas for the two countries? I think we should focus on complementarity instead of competition. For complementarity, it mainly in 3 aspects. First, in maritime economy, blue economy, our two countries are highly complementary in maritime fishery, in ocean protection, in ocean tourism, and ports. There's a broad room for cooperation. Second, digital economy. For example, in AI, a smart city, big data, we can cooperate. Third, a green economy. In new energy vehicle, we can cooperate. In 3 key areas, we are highly complementary to each other. This should be our cooperation focus. Last but not the least, we should focus on connectivity and people-to-people exchanges. Connectivity includes 3 aspects. First is infrastructure connectivity. Second, this is hard connection. A second is soft connectivity is in mechanisms. And third is people-to-people connection. My last point is people-to-people exchanges. How can we enhance people-to-people exchanges through education? First, we need to leverage the current people-to-people mechanism. This has not been fully leveraged. Second, think tank connectivity. Think tank exchanges. According to non-complete statistics, Indonesia is the top 3 countries in investment in manufacturing. when Chinese countries go to invest in Indonesia, they cannot easily adapt themselves to the local culture. The reason is there is not intensive studies between the two countries. For example, we have built the high-speed railways infrastructures, but we have the infrastructure ready, we have the road ready, but there's no industrial parks along the high-speed railways. For global south countries, we need to combine the development of both infrastructure and the industrial park, life park, and tourism park along the infrastructure. This should go hand in hand. If we only build the infrastructure like the road, this is not enough. I've visited Indonesia for many times, and I think think tank should study more in this aspect so that we can make our infrastructure projects more efficient, especially in Indonesia. Only 30 countries have delivered on industrialization. The reason behind is that we haven't addressed the issue I've solved, like the land. In law, if Indonesia can improve the law related to infrastructure investment, this is my suggestion. And hope there is also more people-to-people exchange between local government, between medias, and between young people. So people-to-people exchanges is essential for China-Indonesia bilateral relations.
How to improve and boost the intellectual exchanges through the people-to-people. We have the curious students, education, culture, but the think tank exchange is quite important. It's we should prioritize this field. Like you mentioned, we should boost this field. That's why I appreciate Professor Johari's leadership on this field. We should improve our cooperation on the think tank exchanges between us in the future. Maybe this is a good starting for our cooperation on think tank exchanges. Appreciate that again. Next, I would like to move to another distinguished speaker, who is Mr. George Sang-Nato, who is executive analyst of the Bank Indonesia Representative Office in Beijing. Mr. Sunato is a well-known economist. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. His Excellency Bapak Johari Oratmangun, Ambassador of the Republic of Indonesia to People Republic of China and Mongolia. His Excellency Bapak Rizal, and also Mr. Henry, thank you so much for the invitation. And I think just go straight forward to the slide number 4, the global economic outlook. So, in the term of global economy, the global economy prospect remains on slowing trend, while global financial market shows another rising uncertainty, and this has led to heightened volatility in capital flows and limited inflows to emerging markets, including Indonesia. And with these developments, global economic growth into 2025 is projected at around 3.1%. Such conditions demand vigilance and a strong policy response to mitigate the global spillovers, maintain external resilience, and drive domestic economic growth, as well as maintaining stability. And now I'm moving forward to slide number 6. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, overall, the Indonesian economy has a very strong base, supported by closely coordination and synergy between governments, regulators, institutions, and private sectors. Indonesia's economy shows its resilience, robust and a solid base of growth. Despite all the challenges globally, Indonesia's economy still grows by 5.04% year-on-year in the third quarter of 2025, supported by robust export performance, strong investment, government spending, and domestic demand. And based on the Indonesian Statistic Bureau data, The engine of growth of the Indonesian economic will be household consumption in the third quarter of 2025, contributing 53.14%, followed by strong growth in the manufacturing industry, transportation and warehousing, and information and communication sectors. Interestingly, the creative economy is considered as a new engine of growth with the potential to absorb 27.4 million workers. In 2025, Indonesia's investment saw strong growth with key sectors like basic metal or metal goods, mining, transportation or telecom, and other services leading in realization, driven heavily by domestic investment and downstreaming policies. Priority area for future growth include renewable energy, digital economy, EVs, healthcare, and agriculture, attracting both domestic and foreign capital. By sector, most economic sectors recorded positive performance in the third quarter of 2025. The Indonesian economy is still dominated by the manufacturing industry sector, followed by agriculture, forestry and fisheries, wholesale and retail trade and automobile and motorcycle, construction, mining and quarrying, and these 5 sectors contribute more than 65% to the Indonesian economy. Especially, Java Island continued to dominate Indonesia's economic structure, contributing more than 57% to national GDP with growth by 5.17%. The next largest group will be Sumatra, then Borneo, followed by Sulawesi, Bali and Nusa Tenggara, and then the last is Maluku and Papua Island. Overall, we can say that domestic consumption remains the main anchor, while productive sectors and creative economy will be significant driver of growth in 2025. Slide 7, I'm going to, looking forward based on the recent economic indicators, Indonesia's economic growth in the fourth quarter of 2025 is forecasted to increase on the back of fiscal stimuli through the implementation of priority projects and the government's economic policy package 2025, alongside by the Indonesian policy mix to support economic growth and maintain stability. The Indonesian government continues to demonstrate its strong commitment to maintaining public purchasing power through various stimulus packages. As of October 2025, the government has spent up to 106.5 trillion rupiah, equivalent to 45.2 billion yuan. These stimulus packages target the household sectors, including value-added tax subsidies for home purchases and to workers in labor-intensive industry, including income tax subsidies and housing assistance. Household consumption is forecast to accelerate in line with expectation of higher income, particularly among lower middle income group, given additional social assistance disbursements by the government, accompanied by increasing community mobility and activity ahead of the Christmas and New Year's festive period. The stimulus shows a very positive impact. It is reflected in a continued strong consumer confidence, and therefore, Indonesian entrepreneurs also see opportunities for strong growth. This is reflected in the strengthening business activity index, and this expectation of continued growth in business activity is also based on the continued growth in new demand and new export demand, as seen in the PMI manufacturing graph. This condition has pushed the PMI manufacturing into the expansionary zone, reflecting strong confidence among Indonesian businesses in the future of their businesses. Given all the adjustment and full commitment from government and private sectors, Bank Indonesia projects Indonesia economic growth in 2025 to be in 4.7 to 5.5% range, before further accelerating in 2026. Bank Indonesia also projects that Indonesia's economic growth in 2026 and 2027 will be stronger and solid due to the synergy of various parties, including government, regulators, private sectors, namely growth of 4.9% to 5.7% in 2026 and 5.9% to 5.9% in 2027. Now I'm going to the slide number 10. Dear all esteemed participants, moving forward, several global and domestic challenges need to be anticipated to strengthen policy synergy in order to achieve higher and more resilient Indonesian economic growth. From the global perspective, there are 5 key challenges that need close attention, which are continued U.S. tariff policies and global political risks. weakening and fragmentation of global economic growth, high public debt and interest rate in advanced economic countries, increased vulnerabilities and risks in the global financial system, and the rise of cryptocurrency and digital financial assets. To reduce the impact of those risks to Indonesian economy from domestic perspective, the synergy of the national economic policy mix is needed to support higher and more resilient growth going forward, including mitigating the spillover effect of global dynamics. There are at least 5 policy agendas for Indonesian economic transformation that are needed to support the economic growth, which are synergy to strengthen macroeconomic and financial system stability, synergy to promote higher and more resilient economic growth, synergy to enhance economic and financial market financing, synergy to accelerate national economic financial digitalization, and synergy for bilateral and regional economic cooperation. They're all esteemed participants. Early this year, President Prabowo Subianto and Premier Li Qiang witnesses the signing of a landmark memorandum of understanding between Bank Indonesia and the People Bank of China, signed by Governor Periwarjo of Bank Indonesia and Governor Pan Gonseng of the People's Bank of China, strengthening the framework for local currency transition. That moment signaled not only closer financial cooperation, but also a shared vision of resilience, inclusiveness, and efficiency in supporting our real economies. The rationale is clear. The global uncertainty remains high. Trade tension, financial market volatility, and the dominance of the few hard currencies have created vulnerabilities, particularly for emerging economies. By using a local currency, we diversify risks, reduce costs, enhance financial resilience. The benefits of LCT are very tangible. Businesses can enjoy more efficient foreign exchange transaction and lower conversion costs. Transfer can be settled faster within Asian time zones. Now I'm going to how to people-to-people connection. Now we are going to implement the QR Indonesian standard. Now we are very close cooperation with the PPOC, and the QR Indonesian standard will be implemented approximately starting from January 2026. So during using this QR Indonesian standard, we can then support people-to-people connection. We have 15,000 Indonesian students continue their study in China. I think there's a very good market for us, and then we can go strengthen for the future economic growth. In conclusion, the Indonesian economy remains resilient amidst a series of global challenges due to several key factors, such as controlled inflation, maintained purchasing power through various policies, and continuously improving investment climate, which has positively impacted the strength of the manufacturing sector, both high-tech and capital-intensive. But the challenges we face are heavy and complex, and it's not possible to overcome them alone. With this energy and utilizing the momentum of the 75 years of Indonesia-China relations, we firmly believe that the Indonesian economy will still demonstrate a solid performance. China and Indonesia are strong, and our partnership will continue to yield mutual benefit and drive economic growth for both nations. Thank you. Terima kasih. Xie xie.
Thank you, Mr. Sunato, for your comprehensive introduction for the economic and financial intersection between Indonesia and China. Like just now, Ambassador Koten mentioned that we should uplift the Indonesian industry in China's development and market. I think it's a good idea. Next, I would like to invite another distinguished speaker to touch upon the very concrete field about the cooperation on our resources and energy security and low carbon transition, who is Mr. Lu Ruquan, President of China National Petroleum Corporation, CNPC Economics and Technology Research Institute. We know that CNPC is one of the largest multinational companies worldwide. And Mr. Lu is leading the prestigious think tank Economics and Technology Research Institute. He himself is also a well-known economist in China and worldwide. So floor is yours, Mr. Lu.
Thank you, Mabel, and good afternoon, everyone. And first of all, I think I shall start from a story. You know, about 20 years ago, CNPC actually acquired an oil field from Indonesia. And we buy the shares from the US counterpart. And that means the US people go and we come, 20 years ago. And actually the Chinese people went into Indonesia to replace the US people to be the operator of the oil field. And the general manager of the project, I mean the Chinese person, he just come from MIT MBA and also got the doctor degree of oil and gas. And he speaks very good English. However, even that, he and his team suffer a little bit resistance by the local people. And one day, let's say at the one weekend, he suggested to all the Chinese people and the local people. So he mentioned, gentlemen, why not play badminton tonight? And he played a very good badminton. That is very shocked and surprised by local people, you know, because he's tall and he play good badminton. That is the bridge actually built up between the Chinese and the Indonesia people. That is a very, I mean, the leverage the relationship, you know, that is very, very important. So since that, he and his team was acknowledged by the local people, and so the cooperation became better and better, you know. So you mean that is how important that the badminton was played in that kind of energy cooperation. That is, we see, that is maybe the biggest consensus between the two sides. So that is a vivid story. Actually, later on, this project actually operated by the Chinese person and went to be one of the best projects in Indonesia energy sector. And accumulatively, till now, this project has contributed at least $10 billion for the government revenue and the local revenue, actually. That is, I think that is a very vivid case, symbolize the cooperation between the two sides. So from this fact and this example, we mentioned that how we will next, let's say 10 years in the future, what about the Indonesia's energy sector? In my opinion, Indonesia energy actually is a comprehensive player even in the world, because Indonesia has a lot of enormous oil and gas resources and also the coal resources and the enormous green resources actually. Although now the oil production is shrinking in Indonesia, actually Indonesia used to be one of the members of OPEC, you know. Indonesia used to be the oil exporting countries, very important oil exporting countries in the world. But now it's become the oil importing countries. However, for natural gas, it's still one of the largest natural gas producers in the world and is exporting the natural gas and orange to China. No, that is very important. And also the Indonesia is one of the third largest oil, coal producers in the world. And also is one of the largest coal exporters to China. So this is the traditional energy. What about the green energy? We know Indonesia is, let's say, the tremendous green resources and is a country of islands. And so one of the typical cases is the offshore wind power station and the plant building between China and the Indonesia counterparts. That is a very huge potential. Actually, that is very, very important. As far as I know, right now, Indonesia, let's say last year, Indonesia's green and low carbon development is so quickly. Last year, that Indonesia's CO2 emission is only account about 2.1% of the world total. However, Indonesia's population is about 3 and 4% of the world total. You will see that is Indonesia's the green and energy economy is so quick, is so efficient than the average level of the world average level. So in the future, I put forward 5 suggestions for the China-Indonesia energy cooperation. The first one, I think, is about the interests collaboration. You know, any project, you must be profitable and be beneficial. Only you be profitable, you can be sustainable for the local communities. So the supply chain, the joint, let's say joint ventures should be established. As far as I know, that Indonesia actually, we have a very good contract model. We call it PSC, product sharing contract. Actually, this is one of the oldest contract invented by the Indonesia people. You know, that is very famous. The second one is we call it the innovation collaborations. Let's say AI. You know, China is one of the 2 AI largest countries in the world, and we have the basic research powers, and we have the big model research power capabilities. Indonesia and China shake hands with hands in this sector for AI implementation on energy sector. The third one, I think, is green collaborations. As I mentioned, that's they say, for traditional energy, maybe we can use the CCS and the CCUS, that means carbon capture and utilization technologies to reduce the carbon emission in traditional energy sector. And also for the new green energy sectors, maybe we join hands together to do the offshore wind powers. That is also very important. And the fourth one, I think, it's called the security collaboration. That is, means energy security collaborations. Because for both Indonesia and China now are the oil importing, energy importing countries in the world. And we should join hands together to reduce the energy premium. That is very, very important. Okay, the last but not least is, as mentioned by Professor Xu, that is think tank cooperation. We should people to people, especially the think tank intelligence, our minding should shake hands together. That is all for my presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor Lu, for your very inspiring speech on how to cooperate on the energy sector to involving together. Actually, also you mentioned about the think tank exchanges. I also would like to highlight this sector. And on behalf of CCG, I really appreciate this event and would like to cooperate with more with our counterpart from Indonesia, together with the Chinese peers. And appreciate that. Thank you. Let's, last but not least, we would like to invite Ms. Zhu Ahmed Khan, who is a research fellow at Center for China and Globalization.
Thank
The
you.
floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mabel. And I do feel a little bit of pressure being the last speaker, and there's paucity of time, so I'll try to be brief, but I'll try to communicate some of the points that I thought were important. I don't come from China or Indonesia, like one of the panelists on the previous panel as well. What I think as someone from the Global South is that both China and Indonesia have a special place when it comes to Global South solidarity, growing significance, and growing role in shaping the international order. I'm going to keep my comment very brief, and I'm going to talk about three things: Bandung, the international order, and global governance. And I'll tie it to youth and their significance. Firstly, I don't know if every Indonesian sitting in this room really understands how significant the Bandung movement, that vision, has been for the Global South at large. How important it has been for so many communities, whether big cities, small towns, for people to recognize that there is hope for the Global South to reunite, to come together, and to play a more important role when it comes to global policies, how the world is shaped, and to have a fair share of resources and to contribute to ideas. And actually, I think also this year marks the 70th anniversary of the Bandung movement. And this is an important point to recognize that Indonesia, for decades, since the Bandung movement, obviously in partnership with other Global South countries, for decades has continued to play that important role. Secondly, I'll mention also that, today the Global South, there are parts of the Global South that are still far from the kind of development and synergy that ASEAN and ASEAN plus China and this region has achieved. But with obviously Indonesia's vision, prioritizing pragmatism, having a long-term perspective, and also collaboration between China and Indonesia, this has achieved the kind of multilateralism in the Global South region originally, which is giving hope to other parts of the Global South. So I think in that sense, both China, we know that China's reform and opening up, and these decades with the Belt and Road Initiative and the global initiatives, the development, security, civilization, and global governance initiative, I think these are all philosophical extensions of the Belt and Road vision. And what they're really doing, if we look at how Indonesia has developed so far, so fast, it's obviously a very big country with the youth of 60 million people, also spearheading multilateralism, openness, trade, values, ideas that we all uphold. Both of these are, I think, making the world, especially the vast majority, realize that the international order is not broken or irrelevant. It just needs to be, strengthened further with the commitment of rising powers, and we believe that, our representation needs to improve. So, speaking of the international order, I know that this is a common conception that the international order is somehow shattered or broken, but I feel this is a debate between the global north, which we call the core, and the global south. That the international order, is it a rules-based order? Is it a law-based order? And the global south at large will say it's a law-based order. It's based on international law. It's the UN system. And in that sense, I feel with China's initiatives, also with Indonesia and so many global south countries, we are pushing to make it clear that the international order is definitely intact. It should not be sabotaged by a core that does not want to share. And instead, we need to come together to strengthen it. And how that happens is through strengthening global governance. So my suggestion, my idea maybe, and this is something that maybe China and Indonesia, both countries can think about. One of the previous panelists spoke of the vision for 100 years. I think China and Indonesia, with young, dynamic populations, Indonesia again has 60 million people, spearheading the values that we want to uphold in the international order, being examples for the global south, can really focus further this partnership on global governance training. Youth exchanges are very important. Think tank exchanges are taking off. So why not, for the next 25 years, both China and Indonesia, as Indonesia-China or ASEAN-China, have a partnership where you are nurturing the next leadership of young people, not just from this region, but from the global south and world at large, on becoming conscious about what careers, what paths to pursue to strengthen global governance. And I think this can be a very important contribution to the kind of visible leadership of young people we need to see today. I'll also quickly mention, at CCG, and I'm sure at many think tanks in Indonesia, you focus on youth empowerment, involvement, awareness. And that way, we do believe, I think, sitting in this room, that young people are not the future, they're already the present. So focusing on how we can make sure that our youth play a more constructive, visible role in shaping global governance, I think this can be the coming priority. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you. As time is limited, we should wrap up. But I would like to conclude a little bit is that it's a fantastic panel. I think today we celebrate the 75 years anniversary of our bilateral relation establishment. I think we should also cherish the spirit of Pendong. I think that is the starting point of our Global South cooperation. In terms of right now, some country pulling back, the global picture is changing dramatically. But our cooperation between China and Indonesia should be the example and the model for the Global South countries' cooperation. We're nurturing the new generation. Today we have so many young people studying in China and some young people studying and the tourists in Indonesia. I think it's a good example for us to promote the kind of spirit again. So I think we just not celebrate our bilateral relationship. We celebrate more and cherish more. So thank you again. And on behalf of CCG, I appreciate the leadership of Ambassador Joe Henry, and thank you, Ambassador Cotton and the CSIS friends and our counterparts from Indonesia very much. And thank you, the Embassy of Indonesia to China and all our partners here. Thank you for all and for your great engagement and participation. Thank you again. So let's have a group photo together. May I invite Ambassador to join us? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for the active participation. This concludes the discussion for panel 2. Excellencies, distinguished speakers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, we have had a day full of rich insights and constructive exchanges, reflecting the depth and dynamism of Indonesia-China relations. On behalf of the organizers, we extend our sincere appreciation to all moderators, speakers, and participants for their valuable contributions. May today's discussions further strengthen our shared commitment to shaping a resilient, mutually beneficial, and forward-looking partnership between Indonesia and China. Thank you very much, and that will conclude our discussion program for today.